Hey everyone, it's Minutia Minute, coming at you guys with another episode of Movie Rewind. In today's episode, we'll be talking about my top 5 choices for Halloween Laserdiscs. So if you like Laserdiscs, you like horror movies, these are all some great picks for you to check out and enjoy this Halloween season. I wanted to do this episode because I get asked all the time, why Laserdisc? Now, if you guys are tech fans or home video fans, we could probably have a more nuanced conversation about, how Laserdisc technology works, why it's so cool, even though it's archaic, all that kind of stuff. If you boil it down, the most compelling reason to get into Laserdiscs now in 2021 boils down to availability. Even now, in 2021, there are experiences you can get on Laserdisc that you can't get anywhere else. And I thought to celebrate the Halloween season, it would be fun to talk about a few Laserdiscs that I think are must-own Laserdiscs for any horror fan that they can spin up on any Halloween or any October horror marathon that they might have going on. Now that said, in 2021, the list is getting shorter and shorter and shorter for what Laserdiscs really have something truly unique to offer that you can't get anywhere else. But even in my really modest Laserdisc collection, I was able to pick out 5 titles that I think are worth your time. I did throw in a couple bonus discs just for good measure, so without further ado, let's take a look. So when looking for horror Laserdiscs that I wanted to share with you guys today, I came up with 2 runners-up that didn't quite make the cut, but I think are worth talking about anyway. The first of which is Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola film from the 90s. This is specifically the Criterion Collection edition, which never made it into the Criterion Collection on DVD or Blu-ray. Now, this is a movie that is obviously widely available. You can get it on DVD, you can get it on Blu-ray, you just can't get the Criterion edition on Blu-ray. Now, since the film itself is widely available, that's why it's a runner-up and not one of my main title choices. However, if you run into the Criterion edition of this on Laserdisc, even if you don't own a Laserdisc player, it's almost worth buying just for the packaging alone. You get this beautiful trifold cover with lots of cool artwork from the film. This is hard to show on video. Look at that. How cool is that right there? Cool stuff all around. You've got the Laserdisc chapters broken down across all the discs right here. And then on the back you get a short essay about the film, which is really cool. This one's written by David Ehrenstein, and it's adapted from an essay he did in Film Comment in the January-February 1993 issue. Now, of course, packaging alone isn't enough to make this a runner-up on a top 5 horror movies you need to own on Laserdisc list. The thing that really puts this over the top is the Criterion Collection special features that are available on here. So first of all, you get a separate presentation of the music and effects tracks, which is kind of cool. You get a whole extensive set of still frame sections that have behind the scenes photos, original storyboards, special effect analysis, costume design analysis, and more. A video documentary on Dracula's production and the original theatrical trailer. Now, I would imagine a lot of this stuff is available elsewhere, although the still frame sections on Criterion Laserdiscs are generally not reproduced elsewhere and very much worth your time. They're usually a multimedia presentation on film history, filmmaking on a disc, literally, with short videos, still frames, a ton of reading material, all kinds of cool stuff worth checking out. But then the big special feature that this has that I thought was really cool is it includes an interactive hands-on editing workshop in which they provide you with a scene from the movie, if I remember correctly, Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder, and they provide you with all the different elements that make up the scene, all the different shots, and then using the programming tool on your Laserdisc player, you can re-edit the scene to make it work in different ways than how it's actually presented in the final film. A really, really cool perk on this Laserdisc that obviously you're not going to find anywhere else, and definitely worth the price of admission on its own. Criterion Collection edition of 7. Again, only an edition available on Laserdisc. Again, featuring tons and tons of bonus features on it. Although in this case, I'm pretty sure all of these bonus features have been made available elsewhere. The main reason I selected this as a runner-up was for the actual film transfer itself. So if you're familiar with the movie 7 and its home video history, it's had a lot of up and downs in terms of how it's presented. And the Laserdisc, along with one of the early DVD releases, is the most accurate representation of what filmgoers went to see in 1997 in the theater on home video to date. When David Fincher went back and remastered 7 for high definition, a lot of the color grading was changed. It has kind of a green tint to it. It feels a lot more like Fight Club because he had recently made Fight Club at the time. And so it really didn't represent what filmgoers went to see in the theater. However, that said, this version is also available on DVD. So for that reason, this is a runner-up and not an actual top 5 item, but still a cool novelty nonetheless. And it comes in this awesome 7 giant case filled with discs on the inside. So this one has 1, 2, 3. Wow. This one literally is a 4-disc set. I believe it's all in CAV, which is the basically higher quality format the Laserdisc comes in. And then on the inside, you've got this cool note to the viewer, which is kind of neat as well. So if you're looking to watch 7 and you want the original theatrical experience, if you have a Laserdisc player, the Criterion Collection Edition is definitely a great way to go. So with all that out of the way, that brings us to my actual top 5 choices for Halloween Laserdisc that you guys should go out and enjoy this Halloween season. My number 5 choice is going to go to another Criterion selection. However, this will be the last one in the list, I promise. And that is the Ghostbusters CAV edition Criterion Collection. Now, I note the CAV edition specifically because this was released as a single disc CLV, which is an extended play format. It's lower quality and it doesn't have all the special features that this one does. Now, obviously, you can get Ghostbusters any number of ways. You can get it on DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, so many ways to watch Ghostbusters. Why pick up this awesome Criterion edition beyond just the fact that this gatefold cover is cool as hell, let's face it. The main reason on this one is for the special features. This has special features that aren't included anywhere else. You get a photo essay that illustrates the building of sets, monsters, ghosts, and other aspects of the special effects production. If I remember correctly, that's actually adapted from a book that came out about the making of Ghostbusters. You get an insider look at the making of the film that includes quotes from the director, actors, and other principals. Similar to the Dracula disc, that is literally like Ghostbusters filmmaking in a box. Multimedia presentation in the way that only Laserdisc can provide you. So definitely worth your time. And then the big thing that made this my number 5 choice is it does include deleted scenes from the final cut of the film, including scenes that are not available anywhere else, whether it's on DVD, Blu-ray, 4K. They've never been reproduced outside of this Criterion Collection set. Now, that said, it is a very, very small amount of footage that hasn't been ported over, but if you're a Ghostbusters completionist, obviously this is a Halloween classic, a comedy classic, a film classic. So if you ever see it, it is definitely worth going out and picking up. So now the question is, what edges out the Ghostbusters Criterion CAV set? So this is where I think people might kind of disagree with me on the particulars of which Laserdiscs are placed where on the list. Where it ends up on the list is based on how much of the content is available elsewhere. Since Ghostbusters was widely available and it's only deleted scenes that are unique to Laserdisc, that's why it ended up at number 5 and not higher. The next up on the list is a super common Laserdisc that anyone can go out and find, but has content that's not available anywhere else, and that is the unrated cut of Scream. If you're looking forward to the new Scream movie coming out, this is probably a great opportunity to go back and pick this up. I'll be honest with you, I'm not actually excited for the new one, but for those of you guys who are, This is definitely worth a pickup if you're into Scream. And again, the nice thing about this pick is it is very widely available. You go into any place that's got Laserdisc floating around, they'll probably have a copy of this. The thing that makes this disc unique is that it has probably about a minute of additional unrated Scream footage that was never released anywhere else. And my understanding for the reason for that is Scream is actually owned by Buena Vista, aka Disney. Disney's not willing to release any unrated versions of anything because of their family-friendly policy. It's baffling to me, to be honest, but it is what it is. So the unrated version of this film is locked on Laserdisc. It's never been on DVD. It's never been on Blu-ray. It's only a small amount of actual footage, and it also changes some of the existing footage. So, for example, when Drew Barrymore is hanging from the tree, there's a slow pan in that ends up getting speed ramped up for the rated version, but it's way more eerie seeing that slowed down, the camera slowly moving in on her corpse, and then just a few added touches of gore sprinkled throughout makes this a somewhat more visceral experience than the theatrical version, and definitely worth the pickup. The other cool thing about this is this does have an audio commentary by Wes Craven, the director, and I'm pretty sure this is actually the same commentary that was ported over onto the Blu-ray, presumably the DVD as well, which is kind of funny. So like they'll talk about some of these cut things in the commentary that theoretically you're supposed to be seeing, but if you're watching the DVD or Blu-ray, you're not actually seeing them, so they're just talking about stuff that doesn't actually exist on the version you're watching. So if you're a commentary fan, this is another must-own, because you're actually going to get the commentary to the movie that they're actually watching, as opposed to the rated version that they're not even commenting on. Alright, in a similar vein, my number 3 choice is A Nightmare on Elm Street 5. Now, this is also an unrated version. We're talking about a few minutes missed footage. The thing that I specifically remember about this footage is that when the guy gets like eaten by the motorcycle, or like fused with the motorcycle, or however that scene goes down, there's a ton more graphic content that's in this version. If you're a gore hound, this is definitely a must-buy for you, because really it's just straight gore that's getting cut, same as with Scream. The reason this has never made it onto a DVD or Blu-ray is that all that exists of this footage is standard definition footage, so it doesn't really cut in and out with high definition footage, which is why they've never tried to make an unrated version on Blu-ray. The original footage itself is gone. All that exists is master tape of this footage. Now, if you don't have a Laserdisc player, the good news is you can still see this on the Blu-ray. They just have it in the deleted scenes section, but here is the only place you can actually see the unrated version cut into the film the way the director originally intended. Now, we're talking about Nightmare on Elm Street 5 here. It's not as good as Scream, it's not as good as Ghostbusters, but it was the most footage inserted into the actual film, only available on Laserdisc, that made this edge out Scream by just a little bit. What can I say? It's my ranking, so I do what I want. Alright, so now we are getting into my top 2 picks, and I bounced back and forth quite a bit between what should be number 1 and what should be number 2. Now, I'll be straight with you guys, my number 2 is the less common of the pair. I decided to rank it number 2 because it has actually been released on DVD, and it is now widely available on streaming platforms. I know you can watch it on YouTube, so it's out there. For a long time it wasn't. And if you're a home video file, this still fetches a pretty hefty price on the secondary market. I am talking about the black sheep of Michael Mann's filmography, The Keep. So this is one of those, like, you know, Laserdisc holy grails. And I know probably you guys are thinking this should be number 1, but, you know, I wanted to have a little bit more fun with my number 1 pick. This is sort of too obvious to be a number 1. For those of you guys who know Laserdiscs well and know what, you know, movies are out there that people are looking for, this is the widescreen edition specifically. This was released in widescreen and standard full screen, so be sure to look out for that if you are on the hunt for this movie. And you know, there's no special features, no bells and whistles to this film. The reason you're picking this Laserdisc up is because you want to own a movie that was never re-released in America in any other format. actually only recently sat down and watched this Laserdisc as part of my Halloween movie marathon that I'll be going over with you later on, a little bit closer to Halloween. And I found this movie was okay. I think, you know, there are people who love this movie, people who don't care one way or the other about the movie. I lean somewhere in the middle. Like, I do think it's actually pretty good. It has a lot of interesting ideas. It feels surprisingly Michael Mann-like, considering that, you know, Michael Mann made all these cop dramas and crime thrillers and, you know, Manhunt, Heat, Miami Vice, like all that kind of stuff. And then out of nowhere, you get this film that is basically like a movie set in World War II in a haunted keep in Romania where the Nazis unwittingly release like a golem that terrorizes them and then is eventually put back in the keep for safekeeping. Really interesting movie. Explores some interesting ideas about like humanity and being humane. There's a Jewish character in this who has the opportunity to, you know, unleash retribution on the Nazis with this force that they've unwittingly unleashed. He has to choose not to do it because of the greater implications. Even though the Nazis deserve everything that they get, he has to wrestle with that moral quandary, which is very interesting. However, on the same token, you can tell this is very much an incomplete film. So Michael Mann shot apparently 3.5 hours worth of film, and it got cut down to like a super slim 90 minutes. The effects in this feel somewhat rushed, although are oddly compelling in their own way. And you do leave the movie kind of feeling like, I wish I knew what the rest of the movie was. Scott Glenn, who barely appears in the film, seems like he's almost supposed to be the protagonist, and yet he's in like half a dozen scenes. Like, all his stuff apparently was cut. You're still left with a movie with interesting questions, interesting effects, a pretty interesting soundtrack by Tangerine Dream, but ultimately like an unrealized vision that makes it an oddity, not an uninteresting movie, but also definitely not the masterpiece that I think some people like to claim that it is. So then, last but not least, what is my number one pick? It's going to go to a film that has been released overseas. As a matter of fact, I think it's actually available on Blu-ray, but only in like Germany. And that is what a lot of times is considered a schlock masterpiece, and that is Extro. So there are 3 different Extro movies. I own all 3 of them on Laserdisc. It's my preferred way to watch these movies. I don't know that I would sell you on Extro 2 or Extro 3, but Extro 1 actually is kind of a great movie. It's a no-budget sci-fi horror thriller about a multi-dimensional alien wreaking havoc on a typical family. It stars basically almost nobody. It has Mariam D'Abo. If you're a Bond fan, she was the Bond woman in The Living Daylights, so she's floating around in this. But other than that, it's just kind of this charming, no-budget horror film that you'll start the movie and you'll be kind of laughing at it because it is so low budget and so low brow. The acting is okay, but as you get further and further into it, you kind of get caught up in it. There's this great sequence where these toy soldiers are brought to life, and it's just kind of out of nowhere. A lot of this movie has stuff that's just kind of out of nowhere, and it's just these actors trying to mime their way through being these, you know, full-scale toy soldiers attacking this couple. Really random, really bizarre, but also really charming. So if you've never seen Extro, I do highly recommend you check this one out. Of all the movies I showed you today, when I'm sitting someone down to watch a Laserdisc, this is the one that I really love to pop in, just because you never know how someone is going to react to it. Because it is so out of left field and it has so much random stuff that happens in it, people either love it or hate it, and it's just fun watching people's reaction. I'm someone who falls on the side of love it, so I'm going to wholeheartedly recommend this to you just to go see if you can find. It might be available streaming, I'm not sure, to be honest. But if it is, go check it out. If not, go pick yourself up a Laserdisc player so you can watch it for Halloween. So with that concludes my top 5 list of Laserdiscs you guys should check out this Halloween season. Obviously, this is going to be one of those where it's an ever-evolving list because this is current for 2021. And Movies are constantly coming out. You never know what's going to show up and be available elsewhere. But that said, I think this list is actually pretty safe. Ghostbusters, you never know, that deleted scene might show up somewhere down the road. But when it comes to Scream, Disney's been pretty clear that they're not interested in releasing unrated material, so this is pretty much in the vault in perpetuity as far as I know. Nightmare on Elm Street 5, this is basically a lost film at this point, so probably never going to see a proper HD release of this unless somehow those deleted scenes get unearthed and are available to be transferred for high definition. I'm not holding my breath. They've been pretty clear that's never going to happen. For The Keep, the main thing holding this one back from getting a re-release, my understanding, is the soundtrack. You know, Batman 66 was never available in high definition because of a whole bunch of rights issues, but eventually the will was there, it got cleared up. Will that happen with The Keep? Seeing as, you know, even Michael Mann seemed to kind of disown this film, it doesn't seem all that likely, but you never know, it could happen. I think actually, even though it was my #1 pick, the most likely to show up is probably Extro, since this has gotten an HD transfer in Germany. You never know if Vinegar Syndrome or somebody is going to pick this up. I would absolutely love it if Scream Factory came out with a 3-movie box set of all these Extro movies, but I'm not holding my breath on that. I would settle for a proper American HD version of this movie. I've considered importing the German version, seeing as I do have a region-free Laserdisc player, but I'm kind of happy with my Laserdisc copy for now, so I'll just wait on bated breath, hoping someday it gets a proper American release. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, comment below, and I'll see you guys very soon with another video. Thanks for watching.